This is our friend, Carlos Irijalba. I probably butchered that name because I'm very good at doing that. Born in Pamplona, former resident at Rijksacademy of Amsterdam, graduated at the Basque Country University and UDK Berlin in 2004. His work is driven by the principle of pertinence, the necessary of superfluous character of an object to cohabit the existing world. Thank you for joining us today in New York.
Thanks to you. Thanks all of you.
So we wanted to start kind of like, you know, with every question that we always ask about how like dealing with being in lockdown, how that's been for you, kind of just what you're doing right now.
I mean, I think we very few times we all have the same common denominator. No, we're both like locked in one room or like one space, bigger or smaller. But like, yeah, the feeling is very, very. It's the same layer for everyone. No, for me, I just had a baby 3 months ago, and so like in some like if you want to look positive, it was kind of a. Like if the world solidarized with the quarantine that we were already gonna have. And a part of that is also just, yeah, work and trying to work. For us, I had to take the decision if making the studio here or elsewhere, and I decided to have it here, and it was a lucky decision because at least I can detach, and as Kelly was saying, is such a like medieval environment, so like different from the normal house that you feel like you're somewhere else. So I don't know, like in general, trying to focus, I feel like the productive time, like for everybody, has reduced. I mean, for me, it's like 15% or something of the normal productive time. It feels like this very material but very invisible thread occupies a lot of space, a lot of volume of mental space. So try to get distracted with work and with other stuff, mostly that.
So that kind of goes into the question, like, so since many of your projects depend on travel for research and documentation, how has this travel restriction been for any recent or upcoming projects that you have? And since you're in New York, like, do you think about expanding projects that you've done here?
I mean, I normally work very rooted in wherever I am. I didn't choose New York for any reason. My wife is a pathological New Yorker, and she was born in Queens, and we, so in a way there was a discussion between Amsterdam and here, and for many reasons it made more sense to come here. No, like her community is bigger here, and my parents wouldn't be in Amsterdam anyway. Anyway, for many reasons, we decided New York. In terms of work, it's very obvious, I think, like for everybody here, like all of travel got stopped. Every show got cancelled or postponed to like a dot. No answer, you know, like it's not a, I mean, postponed is a very positive approach, but like many of them that will be cancelled. So in terms of moving, not moving at all, and yes, like I think every artist is life before COVID-19 was a lot of our movement, and I mean, you would feel there was an energy among high mobility, maybe not business people, but artists or like more sensitive, creative people. Yes, about that. Maybe we're moving too much. Maybe we could avoid that one trip, or maybe I shouldn't be in that meeting in person, and this has been forced to be reconsidered now, no? So mainly in general, regarding how the everyday practice takes, maybe it gives more time to focus on the work. Sometimes I think we disperse our anxiety on like on the way of going to a point, no, of how we get to a point. In that case, the installation show or like many things. So it's a lot of distractions. But now you're just like with the work, settled with the work. And there's not much of escape, no. So in a way, I don't know. I think there's a lot we could take out of it. And hopefully we do. I mean, because this might also end sooner than we think. We might not write that book, or we might not read all those 12 books that we wanted, and because yeah, maybe things change. Hopefully for the best, not so fast.
Can you talk a little bit about how your work is very research and process based? So how do you start? Like, what's the point where you start?
I think there's no start point.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the start
what
point.
What are you working on now?
Right now I'm working like in 8-9 projects. I'm always working in kind of a rhizomatic structure. Most of the projects, I mean, you cannot see like the wall here is a bit of like a sociopath, like many artists, no, like with a lot of images and references. Like I don't know. Like,
is it like? Can you show?
Like,
okay.
Yeah, like 2 hawks here inside an airplane.
Okay.
Which I don't know where it will go. Like just, I don't know. I'm just pulling from a mountain, but it's like this is just like some starfish. Will I ever do anything with a starfish? Probably not. No? But no. What I mean is like, luckily, I think I try to work in like several, like say 8 to 12, whatever projects, and they're mostly research based. I mean, we can discuss about research further. And what I mean is like I try to the work to flow, and then because of production, because I mostly never produce myself the work. All of the work, if you had a bit of a look at it, it has a bit of not recycling, but I mean it's kind of a like post ready-made where I use something that is already existing. Where the material is already there, or the dynamics that are following, they're already there. So many projects don't depend on me. They depend on engineering company, on a specific scientist, or on a woman that is knitting somewhere. I don't know, like that I met and I want to do something with her. And so what I mean is like the lucky part of it is like some stop, some had a hard stop, some are retaken 10 years after. So it has to be that way, because if not, if I would just like focus and just fixate on one project, they wouldn't move, they wouldn't progress.
So a lot of your work kind of deals with the representation of biological or organic matter using these industrial processes that you're talking about. And I was wondering if there was a specific project you wanted to focus on, or really if you just wanted to talk about your take on the relationship between the organic and the industrial, and why biomimesis, as you talk about it, is important with this strategy.
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, I think, I mean, also bringing back to the like kind of the process thing, I think we're like the artists, like we are very lucky to be working in a field where it's mostly our curiosity for a matter, for a technique, or for something. Some people have more focused practice, and some others have more like broad. But we are very lucky to be able to develop on a curiosity on the world in general, no? And then in my case, those elements like for example, the biology and the whatever engineer or industry, have a lot to do with a bit of a dichotomy between like pre-human and human, no? Or pre-human and after human influence somehow. The project that we were showing before of the caves, I mean, I can talk a little bit about those two projects. The one is called Skins and the other one is called Fast Forward. And they both share the same premise. They both use the two cave replicas made in the 20th century. One in the 80s, Altamira, and the other one very recently finished in 2014 in Chauvet in France. And for example, what I look in the work is like for a trigger, no? And for example, these two images that you saw in the previous page, these two images on the left, they're not my pictures. They're like from this company called Phénomène in Paris, and they focus on replicating the organic dynamics of the cave. Let's say like there was a painting with some deers, whatever. Like that was another company that was doing. Phénomène was only doing the organic dynamics, no? And they studied the course of the calcareous deposits and everything. And for me, like when I see an image like the one below, for example, that's a bit of the trigger to start developing the work. If you go to the one before, like just the previous.
This one?
No, there's another Skins, no?
Mm.
It's okay. There's a previous project to that one. Is called Skins, no? And it is. Oh, maybe that PDF ends there.
I think it's at the bottom.
I think it's at the end as well. Yeah.
Ah, yeah, that one exactly. I mean, this would be a good example of like the beginning of a project, no? This company was I went there to develop another piece, and then I found out this company that had gone from being in Science magazine in the 80s to now reproducing styrofoam for fake cakes, for fake wedding cakes, no? In a way, like the machine, the CNC machine is able to drill on anything, no? It's kind of like the end reproducibility of an object, no? And in the process in the 80s of replicating the Altamira cave, they had all of these scans, like the one we see in the right. They had all of these scans of the cave, but the ultrasound technique that the scanner used doesn't see the painting. Let's say there would be a deer or a bull or something. So in a way, the technique that we're using to record and to reproduce that element is neglecting the actual purpose of our intention. No? So those caves, the real cave is closed to public, and a replica is built for people to visit. No, and that is the starting point of a whole project. The project itself is a long story, but what I did is reproduce the scans themselves as loyal as I could to the scan and not to the purpose of the painting that they would want, that they were pretending to reproduce in both ways, no? In a way like putting the accent on the human that is detached from that space. Let's say like the public, we cannot access the real cave to see the paintings, and also to the like more like Benjaminian aspect of end reproducibility of that non-material surface of the scan. No, that if we would twist it, if we would be able to twist it, it would have no depth. It would just be a surface. No. So it was between that like material, immaterial, and biological and anthropic. No, so it's a bit to answer your question.
So in a way, what I'm sort of getting from how you're talking about it is like commenting on these processes that treat like what we think of as biological or natural, which we tend to think of as being kind of inherent in itself, right? Organic and sort of produced by these sort of like by organic processes, that this concept of the natural or the pre-human in some ways is like lost to us or subjected to this kind of chain of repetition or signification.
Yeah, I think in a more Platonic way, there's always this, there's this dichotomy between like nature and human, and like this polarizing the subject. The deeper we get into it, at least myself, what I find in it is much more a gray area. No, of course, the human in nature, the strategies that we are inheriting from a long line of development and trial and error from other species, from other non animated strategies or more chemical strategies. So like that dichotomy becomes more irrelevant, and in a way, talking about biomimesis, like you were mentioning, instead of saying like how an engineer, like if we can go to the PDF, to the image you were showing of some metal tubes in the wall.
Sure, give me 1 second.
No worries. So there's a project, it's called Strange Stranger, which is a very straightforward project. It's just 3 pieces, 3 sculptures. One was shown here in New York. Those metal pieces, for example, there's I just selected the object from an engine. I didn't transform the engine at all. I mean, I didn't make any change. It's just an object that it is made by the purpose of yeah. There, yeah.
Down a little bit.
Below. Yeah.
Yeah.
That and yeah. And this is a good example. This is a good example because the image on the bottom left, that's an image I find from a catalog of BMW in the 80s, and it's an engine that is put to test, and it's like put to like to stress the piece to see if it's good or bad, no? But then I mean, clearly it reminds us of some intestines, or reminds us of some other ways that we have to connect some, I mean, kind of like a digestive system, no? The one on the top, yeah, on the center, the black one, is the auditive system of a human ear, for example. It has all of they all have the same purpose. Like, for example, the engine. The only reason that engine has that shape is because the smoke coming from the tube of the very left, and the smoke coming from the tube on the very right, they have to reach the common place at the same time. That's the only reason that shape takes place. Same as the how do you say, like digestive? We have like 2 tubes, like the long one and the
intestines.
Yeah, like so same way, like it's like we have to figure out a way for time to take a space in the minimum volume, for example, like in intestine or in the auditive system. What I mean with biomimesis is that we are not, so those systems are not copied, but in my interpretation, they are already embedded in our thinking structure somehow. I mean, so to say, like we never invented anything. And for example, the shape that our teeth have are inheriting all of the evolutionary history of all of mammals, and before all of other animals that would have teeth, for example.
So I wanted to ask about your piece, Paho. which is focused around the volcano in Hawaii. And after its eruption in 2018, you were able to navigate the area with the US military and a group of scientists. And how were you able to get this sort of access as an artist? And how do you go about access in general? Because it feels like you are able to get a lot of things engineered through companies and working with researchers and stuff like that. And how do you approach that as an artist to get that access?
Yeah, I think that's a good example where we were talking before about like which projects advance and which ones don't. I was following for years, same as the starfish that will never happen. I was following some very slow lava. I think you all have seen maybe in YouTube, for example, like there was like this very slow flows of lava, and people put like cans of Gatorade, and then the lava eats the can, and like all of this like kind of like YouTube like very mesmerizing videos. And I had an idea in relationship to another project, kind of like to create like kind of a contrast between another flow of matter and the lava. And I was looking for a couple of years, and then when I was here in New York one of the first times, and then I said I'm gonna make the trip. So I got an Airbnb. I got in contact with a couple of guides. And then in a couple of 2 weeks, the volcano erupted. The volcano erupts and it explodes, and all of those slow running lava doesn't exist anymore. My Airbnb disappeared, and I was in contact with them. So like, shall I go? And the woman for the Airbnb, before it disappeared, she was like, yeah, it's not so bad. And I kept following. It disappeared, and it got serious. But I still was talking to my guide, and he said, I mean, if your project is like about experiencing this thing, maybe this is the best way. How I got to go with the military, I just went on my own. I didn't have the gear. I didn't have the proper mask. I didn't have anything. I got a fake. I don't have my wallet here. I got a fake press pass. And there was a press, some military guys that you could go, and there was a press guy, and they were getting together some groups, and they were bringing you. That's the lucky when you see the other images where we're in the car with we were measuring CO2 and SO2 like with that element on the left. So that was the safest way to go. I mean, if you cannot go on your own, but if you were going to go in some way, that was the way. No? So then the project had to change. I mean, I didn't have the slow running lava. All of the lava was explosive or frozen like this. No, within 2 weeks, I got to get access to some of the areas that had already solidified, and so then it becomes something totally different. No, like I was thinking of making molds of some of the elements, and then it became just like pure photography projects. So I don't know. I think it's like the biggest. What I try to fight is against the idea of projecting. I mean, I think we all project. I mean, every idea is also, like, again, in a very platonic way, is taking shape in our mind, and we say, oh, I'm gonna make this sculpture, and it's gonna be this with this, and it's gonna be perfect. And it's never like that. The material, luckily, the material or the subject or the place we want to work with, or the people we want to work with, they also react, and they shape what they help us, and they contrast our ideas and our intentions, and that's, I think, why the works have their own life. No?
I unfortunately froze through like half of that conversation.
Kelly, you're like,
I'm so
nice.
sorry. Internet.
Well, it seems it's interesting, Kelly's question about access and your the way that you frame not projecting into the artwork sort of talks about like, it speaks to this sense that you're trying to let whatever is supposed to happen. Like, you have your interests and your parameters, but you're not trying to impose too much to, like, know what the final project is before you like see how things like come together. Is that right? Or like I was wondering actually.
Yeah,
kind of
I mean, I
that
think
light-
I'm a very persistent person, so I think I'm dealing with already. I'm already dealing with industries and structures that are much bigger than my own. I mean, also I don't have much budget for these things. I fund mostly everything myself, and yeah, for example, like a fake press pass can bring you farther than having a lot of money to rent a helicopter. And sometimes it's like, yeah, you find a crazy collector that he's like willing to do something, but that's not the usual. And so then it's mostly about like persistence, no? And then so luckily we have that conversation between the intention and the material, and yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's desire in the end. No, the desire is a bit of a dance between the intention and the reaction of the context.
Mm.
I'm sorry, I don't know where that conversation went just because I didn't hear half of it.
I
So
probably didn't answer the question.
No, I think yeah. It's interesting.
that's the problem with these things is that I can hear like 2 words and then it just like stops and then I come in like maybe five sentences later. So I guess like I wanted to see like, since you are so research heavy and like I know that I'm sure it's like opening a can of worms, like do you think that a single representation is enough to express the idea? Like how do you, just like a photograph or sort of a sculpture, or do you think about sort of like publishing your research as well? I know like you have this PDF, but when you're showing some work, do you find that all of the sort of backstory and research should be shown with the stuff for people to better understand, or you think that the physical representation is like what you want people to see?
I mean, I'm very object based, and I think it was already my intention. And then the path that I chose, I studied with Angel Vados in Basque Country, which is like very like a new Basque sculpture teacher or course somehow, and Lothar Baumgarten in Germany. Like he was like, I mean, his main sentence that he ever said, like "Bau es doch," no, in German, like build it already, no, like if you stop talking about it and build it, no. And I think that stuck like strongly with me. I'm not so like much like building. I'm more into like selecting elements that are already there, and in that sense, I think and research is a way to find things that are already there. No, I'm not that like artist that would like grab a piece of clay and make a. I mean, I'm really not figurative in that sense. I'm more into like real objects that might have an effect in people, no, in myself. I think everything in a good way, it starts from a very egoistic way, no. I think we like some things, but we don't like many things. If not, we wouldn't do things. No, we just go to museums and enjoy other art. I mean, I think we enjoy all that art, but like we want to do something. We want to contribute in some way, which is that they might have also another psychoanalytical point of view. But to answer your question, I think we have a bit of a path. I mean, there's also, let's not forget, we live from it, or we try to live from it, and that's another conversation. I mean, for example, I feel like I'm not very productive in feeding what the context wants from me. I mean, I'm always doing different projects, and one might not look like the other, and it's not very smart from a very if you want to try to be like, I'm having a conflict. I was talking to a friend before. a conflict with New York environment. Everybody's so branded, with all respect. Everybody's so branded and like has very clear vision of what they, and like the story, the narrative that is behind, and I mean, I think we should be much more spontaneous and I don't say either only like career shifts, but like just like I don't know, like free will of developing the work in directions that you feel like, and not thinking of like, oh no, because 5 years ago I took that decision already. I'm never gonna shift to all these other disciplines. So I think there's a lot of in terms of what I mean is like art within art world and in relation to art market, which is another animal. It's we I don't know, we have to, I think we have to impose ourselves a little bit more in our desire and ways of doing on top of what's expected from us.
Gabby, did you want to ask that other question that you?
Oh yeah, I was trying to think of a good segue, but I guess it's not that necessary. But I think something that's really interesting about your work that stuck out while I was sort of reading through your materials was how you sort of start talking about, especially in the Cave project, right, the Skins project, how this process might propose a different way of looking at history or thinking about historical narrative. And this is now just going to be a really broad question, but I also know that, or thinking about historical narrative, like the idea of the relationship between objects and truth, right? Even in this talk, you've talked a lot about Platonic ideas versus the way that they're inflected by process or by context and research. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about your relationship to history. And actually, as you were talking, I was wondering whether that has to do with your relationship to like Basqueness and like the Basque region, and like the difference between that history and like the hyper nationalism of Spain as a country and institution.
That's a long conversation. It's a very long conversation.
It's a long conversation, but it seems like that's like there's this kind of like subtextual, like emergent political, historical
yeah.
in your work.
I mean, in terms of like the material, and I don't know if you refer to that, like how I use a lot of geology, and like that's really like very rooted and very like even primitive, no? It's very primitive perspective, no? I've been, I mean, since I've been like 19, I've been out of Basque country, and maybe like in a way, like I've been, and now I don't have access so much, but when I was in Amsterdam, I would travel very often back to Basque country, and I wouldn't know why, but there would always be a relation, a reason for like go to a quarry or something. So there must be something of analytical there that I mean, I should go through. Basque context and Basque art context is very specific, and I think in a very early moment I decided I had a lot that I received from it, but I feel there's a bit of a closed circle in every context, I think, no? Like when everybody leaves his village, or like you know, in every context there's a way of comfort, and there's a way of like you had enough, no? From the perspective also, not only the territory itself, but like also my teachers, and I feel very rooted, and I feel very happy to come from Basque country, and I culturally defend it and share many thoughts. But like the word is very big, and in a way it's really funny. Like this panotia, the ones I sent you before, I think it's a good example, because it's you were asking me before what I'm doing, how I continuing work here. The panotia pieces that are these drillings, these pieces, they started by a commission. Actually, the fourth one is the first one I ever made. This was a commission for Musak Museum, and it's this gave title to the whole series. And it's just a geological cliff, no? It's a shift. It's very easy to understand. It's like a very didactic shift. And I started the project because it's the place where the museum is one very important place for study the triangulation of the supercontinents, say Pangea, then Pannotia, then Rodinia. And then I used so we commissioned, like, the second image is like we actually did the drilling. So we drilled on the spot, and we dug into this encounter of two blocks of one basaltic and one sedimentary. And so it would be a very simple example of how a line of work started, and then all of the rest that you are seeing, those are aftermath, no, of it. Like this one is in collaboration with a mine, was for a commission for another museum, and so just so to say, what you were asking of how it evolves and how it can be translated to other places. Like right now, I didn't realize. I thought there was a very rich geological conditions in Spain and Europe. I mean, there's another one that you would see. There's another one I did in Netherlands, which is Sykestein Sea, which is a sea of salt. You can see it in my webpage. But then I moved here, and then it took me already like almost a year or something to. Yeah, this is a sea of. A sea of a kind of a frozen sea. It's basically now is a big block of salt under between England, Netherlands, and Germany, and this was a total different approach. No, like if you see below, what I did is I dissolved the salt from the drillings in water, and I spread it evenly on the floor of the exhibition space. And then once it crystallizes and evaporates, it makes like a bit of a drawing of the territory of the floor itself. No, it's a bit of how, I mean, the floor might look flat from our human perspective at naked eye, no? But if you go into another scale, you can see the floor itself has its hills and valleys. It has its own territory, and the salt is able to draw it in its own way, no? So what I meant to say is that I started to work with drillings here. It has taken. Now I'm working with a company in New Jersey that has drillings. Luckily, I mean, also talking about luck, which I think it takes a big part in all of this, no? With the COVID, they were throwing tons of drillings. So drillings are made. I don't know if you all are familiar. Drillings are made for different purpose. In this case, it's to extract salt, and you can see the transparent ones in there. In this case, it's just they make the drilling to extract the salt. But you should make drillings if you feel the floor is contaminated and you're going to do some activity that is involved with human health, or mainly if you want to build something like all of the skyscrapers in New York. You have to dig at least 1/3 of the amount that you're going to go up. So for World Trade Center or for something, it has to be like 100 something meters below. And yeah, and now I'm finding myself with like I have some drillings here.
Sharing so you can show us.
There's this serpentinite, for example, is very beautiful. I don't know if that's like, but it's very green, very. Well, green in geology doesn't mean like green in painting, but they're very, very green. They're very beautiful. If you wet them, if you make them wet, then they
So wait, those came from New Jersey?
Yeah, well, this comes from Manhattan.
Oh,
This might be like some building they wanted to some skyscraper probably because I have like a couple of I mean I have more like 50 meters, so it's a high building. But what I mean is like you might think there will not be a more exciting material to work with than the one you have, and then there's this other place you go to, and then you find and material that's challenging you in another way. No, I mean, so I think that's it's a good reason to at least be elastic on the place where that when you come from, for example.
Yeah. There also, it seems like the way that you talk about materiality is in line with like a kind of some thinkers who, you know, would say that like history is something which is legible on a surface, right? That you could, there's a kind of cartography or a kind of like, you know, almost genealogy that you can trace just by trying to understand and track the material affects that accumulate with material, and that this gives a version of a history which has not been so like plastically altered or something like this.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's I think a lot of it is, I don't know. That's why in my case, I think we express in another way that is not textual and it's not because those things that we deal with when we deal with color, when we deal with a painting or an abstract sculpture shape or something, is like, I think we're dealing with material, and we don't, and material doesn't express easily with words, and that's why we're dealing with it in a very direct way, and that's why we transform it and we put it in front of an audience, and like hoping hoping that element is gonna communicate something in between us, no? Or like the object doesn't have to communicate. The object has to become a mediator, no, or an excuse for us to talk about the world. No?
Totally.
So I wanted to ask on a more personal note, I know that you have like a love for good food and craft beers, and I know that's like a lot of our conversations, and I'm curious about this interest and how it sort of relates to your work. So processes like fermentation or alchemy somehow feel like appropriate to your practice, and how you are transforming one substance to another. Have you ever thought about that connection?
No. I mean, I like drinking well and eating well, and that's just pure pleasure. And I was talking to a friend the other day, and like, would you ever try making beer? And she's like, no. I mean, I want to drink good beer, and I'm already quite busy with my own practice. No, no, but I mean, I think it has nothing to do. I mean, I think that really comes from Basque, like really like pleasure-driven society, and no, I could try. I don't know, but I don't think there's any relationship. Or like because I mean, I do think I find a lot of anxiety and suffering, not suffering, like hard moments in work, not suffering. It's really most like certain subjects or elements that I work with. They're hard, you know. They don't let you in context, or they don't come in easily, you know. They I don't know. I deal with a lot of no's. I get a lot of no's every day. And for example, I don't know, like the company with the caves, that's a very tragic story, how I ended up doing it that way, for example. There was I contacted with the father was great, but the son was this guy that is just like only thinks over the weekends and walking his dog, and then something that could have been a very, very easy project, it turned into 2 years of really hard working on it, no? And that turned out well somehow. What I mean is, like in the work, I find it very difficult situations, and the pleasure of eating or drinking well is something I don't intellectualize at all. I just enjoy.
Cool. Well, I was going to ask everybody if you have any questions that you want to send. Now is a good time. And I guess like just the way that you're talking about this now makes me want to ask you like how you think about pleasure in your work.
I think it's very little. Very little work. So very little pleasure in work. Oh, by the way, this is one of my favorite beers of the season. Just like
that is the scariest can I've ever seen.
I don't know them. It's Wombat. I don't know where they make Wombat. Thin Man. They're from New York. It's really I really enjoy it. Just like but I don't know. I mean, there is a lot of pleasure, but I think you don't recognize it until after, with distance. I think some of the projects you have a hard time, but I think everybody has a hard time, no? With like that one stroke that you gave and that you shouldn't have given, and then there's no way back. And then, and in retrospective, a lot of those processes that we deal with, that it is, they're very. I think we work with a very irreversible practice, and we are a little bit masochistic, because if not, we wouldn't be doing it, I think. But I mean, as we said before, I think we're very lucky. I feel super lucky to be able to develop work on what I reflect on the world as you want it, and try things, and there's no good, so there's no finish line. So that's very liberating as well. But pleasure by itself, I don't have like epiphanies or something. I don't have like a moment of oh, this is finished or something. I don't know, which I think is life, no?
Yeah. So Esteban Cabeza de Vaca, who's here under Heidi Howard, the name Heidi Howard, who also did the Rijksacademy residency, wants to know, how did your time there contrast with your time in the New York City art world?
I have very little time in New York art world, so I really don't know. And then the virus came, so I really cannot say much. I mean, for the little bit I have experience is what I was saying. Like everything is like career driven, and I know this is a very difficult city, and everything is very expensive, and there's a kind of a ticking clock, you say, or so it's a little bit competitive in that sense, and I really don't. I will be talking to the bartender in the opening or something, and I'm not that animal. I'm not that person. The Rijksacademy I really enjoyed. I was a bit on the older part. I don't know in which moment did you go. What I mean is, like, normally people between 25 and 35, more or less, and I was like 34. And my career was already, I mean, I was comfortable in a way. I had a gallery, and I was showing, I was happy with, and then the Rijksacademy is really like an open heart operation. It's very demanding, very yeah. It was tough in the. I mean, I would repeat it tomorrow. I mean, it was very, very good experience, but because of the masochistic part. But it is intense, and but in a very good way. I mean, your work is like in practice, and also dialectically put in a lot of questioning. But also you are given something that we have never been given, which is like, okay, here's this amount of money, and here's all of the workshops you want, like painting, sculpture, robotics, wood, metal, photography, video, everything. And what are you able to do? And that's a situation that we have never confronted in life. And that's blocking as well, I think. I mean, I think the first year of Rijksacademy, everybody just spends it overcoming that situation.
Like too few limitations or something.
Yeah, and then it's very challenging, and it's very demanding, and there's a lot of advisors, and they have their opinions, and then you're being questioned, and you're like in kind of a stress. I didn't feel competition. My group was very, very nice, very diverse, and I didn't feel it competitive at all. And but it is challenging. It was very good. I mean, I totally recommend it to everybody. I think this year's deadline is over, but I would totally recommend anybody that is in that time and wants to really dive in your practice with no excuse. You don't have no excuse. You have to go there and perform.
I wonder also if, because I know maybe I'll unmute Esteban so he can ask on his own terms, but I also know, like, from when y'all were there, your experience of the art world in Amsterdam was also really different, right?
Yeah, I guess I was just thinking about the different contexts of what it's like working in Europe and then working back in the Americas, and just like the differences, and also certain expectations or like tastes of Northern Europe as opposed to like the context of working in America. And I don't know.
What were your years?
I finished in 2018. So yeah, and that salt piece that you did, I recognize that thing. So it's cool space.
Yeah.
Esther, what are you talking about the expectation? What do you mean?
I think in certain ways there's like a dialogue about like colonization there that is sort of like blanket progressive, but under the surface there's a lot of unaddressed like appropriation of like, you know, aesthetics, people of color in a way, and like politically correct demonstrations and like funding structures that are kind of problematic as well. But it can be a good space at some moments, but I could also think it's also kind of caustic in other points.
Yeah. You become guilty. I mean, there's a lot we could talk about this. Like, I mean, the whole Rijksacademie itself. I hope that none of the board is listening.
No.
And the whole structure is about like putting Dutch art. There's 10 artists from Netherlands and 10 international they get in, no? And it's kind of like a building resilience on Dutch art environment, no? I think that's quite. And also what you say is like the Rijksacademie is funded by BP, by like big organizations, and the art context itself in the Netherlands is very like super comfortable, no? And it's like very perverse Northern Europe context where there's this very feeling of I think that's, I mean, you know, also in a way I think that way I left from there afterwards because it can become too comfortable. It can become like permanently funded, and it's kind of like limbo, and that is very numb, no? Very, I think.
Yeah.
What is your experience in the New York context?
Yeah, I mean, we moved back here. We were living here, me and my partner Heidi Howard, and it was just really good to just reconnect with our community of artists like Gabby and Florencia, you know, and just back here. Because I just feel like the painting conversation there wasn't as rigorous or as interesting, I should say, as it is here. So that was one of the reasons. And yeah.
Carlos, you had lived in Amsterdam for quite some time before the Rijksacademie, no? So
No. I went for the Rijks.
Oh, okay.
I went 2013 for the Rijks, and I stayed 7 years.
Okay. So
Where were you before then? Where were you before then?
Before then, directly, I was 2 years in Madrid.
Okay.
Because I was in a relationship with the Spanish, and then before that I was in Berlin, and I stayed after. After Berlin, I was a bit here. I did the ICP here in 2010, I think. And I have been coming here, but I never understood really. I really never understood the art world here. It's still very difficult to me to understand.
It's really weird.
I would like this open conversation to give some clues, because I don't
What
know
do you
this
want to
one.
Wait,
understand?
hold on. I'm going to unmute everyone. The formal part of Precog time is over.
No. Okay.
So come join us. And then that's it. Yeah, what do you want to know, Carlos? Thanks everyone for coming.
Thank you everybody.
Um,
I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, for me, what I say is like I think it's a very competitive environment, and I have a lot of friends painters. I see them like really fighting for a moment, and I understand that what sells, but in a way that I think there's no. For example, we were talking about research. Like nobody's gonna listen when you. If you have an advisor or not an advisor, yeah, like another advisor, like, okay, like, how can you make 10 more of this? Like, no, but this, I have 3, and then it's because of this and this and this that I made 3. And no, but I mean, if I sell those 3, what am I gonna do? Like, it's not about that.
Yeah. I guess people need there's not a lot of money for like, there's not like a lot of resources.
right.
It's very commercial, right? All the money that's available is commercial. So they need to see things.
There's like a very different attitude about like research with institutions and how you like make work too. It's just very different. Like as soon as I saw your work, I was like, and I didn't know you went to the Rijksacademy, and then I saw it and I was like,
New York. New York.
Like as soon as I saw it, I knew.
well, I just think it's like I think like coming from the New York art world and then moving there and seeing the process by which most people make their work is like
Well,
it does
also like
look that different, but it is like a very different way of.
There's also like the international kind of like artist that travels from residency to residency kind of model, I feel like. And then there's artists that just stay in one place. I don't know. That's like a whole nother thing. Because I feel like residencies also shape art. Like they make us artists have to work. Like you finish your project, finish it in the residency, or like you can't like be like, I don't know. I feel like I can't go to residency because you get a job and you're like, oh, am I ever gonna have a job again? You have to stay, where you are. Or you can't travel with all your materials. Like if you're a sculptor, you're like, it's not really that like. I don't know, productive also because you're always having to like, go somewhere and meet a bunch of people, start again. I don't know. What does your partner do?
Mine?
Yeah.
She was in the art world, but she started a furniture company now. And I'm very happy about it.
How does that, how is that experience? Like,
good. I mean, because like design is a little bit, related, and we can have conversations. She knows well the art world, but it's not. I'm not a social animal about the art world. I mean, I don't have to be here. I have no FOMO or anything. So in a way, that's healthy. I think it's healthy.
What does she design? What kind of furniture?
No, she has a brand called Tortuga Living, and so she commissions. So there's something designed in house, which is her or with some ideas, and there's every piece is commissioned to a different designer. I'm a big fan of them. I mean, the house is full of this stuff.
You guys do have very nice furniture.
But no, so in general, I'm very interested to know the approach that you guys have to New York art world. Is really a mystery to me.
I think what also helps too is just going to openings and talking to people too. And I think this platform is also like a really good way to just keep a dialogue with different ideas that people are having. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like going to openings that we can't do right now.
I know all the advice that's going to happen is not something that you could do.
Yeah, like everything's gonna change too. Like, I don't know, like, can you even think about going to like an art fair for like
set a timer for
a Karen?
Meeting you, Karen.
Karen's like cooking.
Me too.
Alex.
Hey.
Hello. I think the New York art world is gonna
Blow up.
implode.
Implode.
As someone who, works at a kind of, it's not a big gallery, but it's not a small gallery in Manhattan, and it's, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think
So where's
working
it gonna go?
it got too big, and now it's failing, and maybe it should fail a little bit because,
So where's it gonna go?
I don't know. That's what I want to know, and I want to know where artists are going, because I know so many artists who have fled New York. I don't know.
Gabby's
Anyway,
staying in New York.
Huh?
I don't know. It's
So you're staying in New York.
Me? Of course.
Yeah.
When you talked about your partner as a pathological New Yorker, I was like, hello.
Yeah.
Like, hello.
He went to Amsterdam. We were doing 6 months Amsterdam, 6 months New York, and she would go to Amsterdam and like see galleries in one day, see museums in another day, and she's like, now what? I have 28 days of the month to
She's like,
fill."
I'm over it.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like I was rethinking, I know it's really cheesy, but I was feeling really down about like the New York art world, because it sort of started to feel like the only people who had survived this were like the galleries that David Zwerner had decided to feature on like their website or whatever. I was like, I mean, good for them, but like it's ridiculous. Or like the only way that anyone has access, it's like the art world had closed down. Like if you're not represented or have like a large collector network, like there's literally no space for anyone who's independent to come into contact with anyone who might want to redistribute their wealth a little bit or something, but other than like Kickstarter and benefits. But then I started thinking like, like the Sharon Loudon approach to life, she like writes those books, Sustaining a Creative Life. And she's a cool lady, and like, whatever, has her own things going on. But I've heard her talk a couple times at places where I teach, and like her questions are always like, what do artists and art workers need? Like, what do people need? Like, what do we have? And like, how do we share them? And how can we like create systems where we can essentially help each other and like help each other make our work meaningfully and like live our lives sustainably. Like it just seems like really fucking simple questions, but maybe I don't know, whatever, that's where I am today. Like my hope is for,
I mean, in a way we are each other's public. I mean, in terms of public and attention and everything, we are each other's, like I'm interested in certain people and so other people, so we are each other's public. I mean, the thing is like more about like how making a living, no? And here it seems to be very complicated, and it seems to be like what's commercial, if there's not many museums by here, so the realm of what is commercial seems to be like a hangable, like, there's all of these things that are very, I don't know, seems like a very futile conversation, no? But
I would also say, but I think like in the Netherlands, like what museums buy and like the institutions and things that they're looking at is pretty limited. It's just
it's true. I mean, I will never defend the Netherlands. It's just a place that you and I will pass by.
I mean, I think it's interesting, like, because when you talk about like a more public system with museums and funding for arts, that's like an example of one system. But yeah,
I mean, I've also heard that it could be a little complicated because then artists start making work that they know that they'll keep getting sort of funding for. So you get sort of trapped in this area of making the same kind of work over and over again because you know the government's going to fund it. So maybe you're not.
It's the same with the
extending.
commercial,
Am
no?
I
If
not
you know this
talking-
is going to sell. I mean, the gallery, the gallery will also trigger some work, and or you will kind of push you to one direction, no? And it's a bit the same.
Was that not your experience working with European galleries, that they were like more flexible about how things might change? Or
I think I'm lucky with that, but I've seen a lot of artists being burned. I literally have a lot of friends that have been by like a couple of galleries that I know. It's like, no, you have to do this way, and this part of the work is, and maybe in a way, like the last years of my work react to that. Everything looks different, and it might look like a bit of a schizophrenic artist that has different projects and that don't look alike.
Do you feel like you suffer then economically because of your choice to do that?
I think I'm being lucky. Really, I don't come from comfortable. My family is very humble, and I managed somehow. Don't ask me why, to live 15 years from my work.
Wow.
But if tomorrow it goes down, I will find it fair. But I'm gonna keep doing what I do.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like things will be different and we're all like waiting to see what will happen. Because also New York's always changing, you know, like people that were here in the 60s, it was just like, there was a very different kind of art world, and maybe now it will change again, you know? Maybe more artists will open up spaces. Maybe they'll, you know, I don't know.
yeah,
I think rent is actually going to go cheaper in New York.
Yeah.
Like storefront spaces and stuff.
Yeah. Broadway is up for grabs, no? All of Broadway.
It's going to start doing like squatter approach. You just can for your own gallery.
Yeah.
I just wanted to pop in. Can you hear me?
No.
Hi, Kim.
Yes. Hi, Barbara.
Oh, is that
Hi.
oh, bye, Barbara.
Hey. I just wanted to say I think that's a really I think it's really important to not look for legitimacy in money or in some art world or institution as an artist. You know, like you said, like if you stop getting money tomorrow from your art, you'll see it, like you're not gonna stop, right? It's like that's like the truth about, like, I know it might sound like idealist, but that's the truth about being an artist, is that like it's something that you're not gonna stop doing, whether somebody's telling you it's okay or it's you know, lucrative. And that's the whole point, I think.
I totally agree. I mean,
I don't know. Go ahead.
Sorry.
I don't know. I think there's a lot of artists who, like, just, if you look through history, who have never been recognized or have never, like, got to see the potential or how, you know, their work has affected. But it's you know, it's not always about that. And we have to, like, it's hard and it sucks for a lot of us who don't make money from our artwork, but that's not the point. And I think we get wrapped up into these conversations. And yes, we need community and we need to feel sustainable, you know, in our hearts, you know, but that's what kind of, like we're saying, community is for. And that's why people are, you know, addicted to New York, is because there's an amazing art community, intellectual community, activist community that fulfills all of those needs. And you can work your ass off and still kind of like do your weird, you know, work behind doors. That's how I feel.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, if we were not in a place where like money is so vital, I mean, just desire would be driving our acts, and that's the most important. I mean, who cares? I mean, that's what I mean. Like, if everything has to have certain shape to fit certain desire of a market.
Mhm.
Also, I'm totally. I mean, that's what I think it should be. I mean, but I don't see a lot of freedom in New York sphere. I didn't have much chance. I mean, I just came here. I had a baby 3 months ago, and and I didn't leave the place much.
Can we see your baby? Is that
Yeah,
She's,
in our
Probably not in the basement with him.
she's in heaven. She's in heaven
I
now.
had the baby.
Can we see all the
Like,
babies that
all
are
the
around?
babies
Because
show
I think
up?
there are several babies in
Everyone
this
said they're babies.
situation that I haven't seen.
Yeah,
I
Gona.
have
Yeah.
Gona's is like, okay.
Like, it's right here.
Gomez, how are you?
Did she
Okay.
leave?
Yay.
Oh,
He's so cute.
Cool.
Cute.
Oh.
He's also 2.5 months, almost 3 months.
So good, so good.
So you know what I know what you feel and what you have been
Yeah.
going through this past 3 months.
Yeah,
Oh.
the whole world has solidarized with us, no?
Yes. Yes. They came to this world and they were like, the world needs to stop. You're here.
Yeah.
yeah.
And it stopped.
Gona, is it make it as a parent? Does it make it scarier though? Do you think to be like worried, like, oh, what's gonna
With the
happen to my
quarantine?
kid? Like, how long is this virus gonna happen? You know?
Yeah, I'm like crazier than ever. Like I think like as a parent you have like a constant like worrying that you can just actually like go insane. But I feel like with everything going on, like I have like my hands, look at my hands, like wash them like fucking 10
Because you don't
1
wanna,
million
like,
times, like they're like so dry. Yeah, I'm like I'm touching the baby, so I need like to wash my hands every time I'm like doing something.
yeah.
Yeah, I think like yeah, probably this whole thing is gonna be over, but like the mental
Of like having of like being
changes that
worried
you have
about-
is crazy. Yeah,
Yeah.
that for sure is gonna continue. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Naz,
Yeah.
I have a solution for you. If you put Vaseline on your hands before you go to sleep when you take a nap, and then you put you put socks that you don't like that much on top of your hands, you will get a good deep moisturizing treatment.
You know
It's
what's the
also works
problem?
on anyone who hasn't had like a pedicure.
Yeah.
I've had one in like I don't know, probably 5
It's
years.
just the only problem is that I don't get much sleep with this baby. It doesn't let you sleep, so
Yeah.
you can't actually do that. Put your socks on and go to bed.
Nap.
But I'll do
Nap.
it. Yeah.
20-minute session with Vaseline and socks.
Yeah. I miss you. So good to see you here.
Manal's here too. Come here.
I'm Manal.
Manal's wearing a baseball hat like all day because her hair is really long for her, and it's like not even that long. Like I've had quarantine hair before quarantine.
Me too.
It's the quarantine cut.
Do you go outside with the baby?
Who is asking? And am I supposed to answer?
Karen's
Okay.
pregnant.
I'm
Oh,
pregnant right now.
Hey, I know, yeah. I mean, I should go out with the baby more often, but actually today I did it. Like, it's like a process of like an hour and a half to get ready for like only 10 minutes of being outside. And an hour and a half, like actually, you know, unpack it. So.
Wow, like a little park.
I mean, to be honest with you, I think like these babies are like experiencing such a different thing. Like we sat down like in the park for like 10 minutes and there was like a wind blow and he freaked out. He like started crying and I was like, this baby doesn't know what the fuck the wind is, you know? He doesn't have that experience on his skin. Or like he hasn't seen many people. He has only seen people on like actually like on phones and laptops.
Yeah.
You know, he doesn't like doesn't know. I mean, I don't know how he's gonna react. I mean, they're also like growing up, so I don't know like how he's gonna react when he's actually like a real person.
You have family near you? Or?
Yeah.
What is it?
You have family near you?
I have my partner only here. No.
No, but like parents of any of both? No, we're the same. We're the
Oh,
same.
yeah,
Well,
we're supposed to be here.
how is your family, Gonas?
They're good, the same, self-isolated. But yeah, I feel like they're my parents, my whole family are in Iran, so they're kind of like a couple weeks ahead of us. So they're chill
It
now.
opened up pretty quickly now, I guess.
Well, not quickly, but and also it was because it was kind of like when it was the peak of it, it was the Persian New Year. So usually like the country is like actually in holidays for like 2 weeks already anyway. So it was like that. But then after that, maybe like after 3-4 weeks, the government opened up some businesses. Yeah. But I mean, I don't know about something about Iran is like people have given up so much about the government that they sort of become self-sufficient, you know, like they are just doing it, which I think like in here is the opposite, you know. And you just like see it like when like you see that part of people being like self-sufficient, like in helping each other here, you know, like you're like you see people like are doing deliveries for like elderly, you're like seeing like people are like taking care of each other. It is crazy. I mean, I'm actually like in a very pessimistic sort of perspective, and like when we're like talking about all of these things with like the commercial aspect of it, the market, the arts, like why we are doing the art from the first place, I'm like yeah, like it's New York and it's very exciting and all of it, but at the same time it's such a careeristic and competitive city that kind of like pushes out actually the values that can be defined, like why you do it as an artist. And like as a bigger umbrella, you totally see like how capitalism, you know, like has this sort of like the market, the art market, the commercial aspect of it in it. And it's very difficult to kind of avoid it or not be a part of it or not to be triggered by it. But yeah, I'm like in the hopeless, like, you know, like stage right now, so I'm like whatever. I don't know. I mean, it's kind of also in the same time good, right? Because if you see someone is like super productive right now, you're like, are you fucking kidding me? You know? You're like, you kind of judge them. Like before it was like all about like,
I know, before it was all like, everyone's like,
social media, yeah. And, like,
and now you do one thing a day and you're like, I'm so tired.
Yeah. You kind of like don't, you're like you look stupid if you like put too much of your work online right now, you know?
Yeah.
Really changed social media. Like influencers are over, I think.
We should all get a Discord group going.
What?
Alternative digital forum where people can share things and not have to like present a brand. Like,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So
Are we gonna like start MySpaces again?
I'm doing this wristband. I want to talk to you about these wristbands that I'm doing. Just joking.
I was like, tell us more.
Like when you're like trying to sell us something right now, you're like, trying to figure New York out. So I made like a lot of artists are like, oh, I'm trying to be an artist, but maybe I'll start making bread, like, you know, and then they'll be selling their bread and it becomes like this whole like crazy bread thing.
But that's not even unique. Everyone's making bread, you know, like
the whole scenario of like bread and like just cooking, you know, especially like for like me right now, I can't even like fucking like bake. Like I know it's just like, don't show off your fucking dishes. Like I don't care what you eat. Just fucking eat it.
It's like the only content.
I don't know if she's still here around, but my student Kimberly is here, who just graduated from college.
Whoa.
And so
she's
Why are
there.
you calling me out?
like you're here and you're listening to everyone kind of paint this super bleak picture of the New York art world. So I just wanted to, maybe people can also, send some positive vibes your way.
Yeah, it's true. But also next week, Kara Cham, she's
next week
talk
Kara Cham.
about her art, and she's in LA. So maybe she can talk about what's going on in LA.
Yeah, I can do that.
Because are things opening up over there?
Not so much. If you were to get onto the freeway, it would seem that way now. But I think it's basically just roadside pickup for like sporting goods stores and retail stores and stuff. But everything's still
Well,
stuck.
the beaches opened up, right, Kara?
I don't think they did. Actually, no, the park opened up this weekend, actually. And what was I going to say?
Are there special rules for going to the park?
Probably. I haven't really.
Because I was listening to in New Jersey, George, when they opened up the park the other day, they closed, and when they closed, they had to do so much cleanup of urine in bottles and human feces, and they were like, look, we can't open up these parks if you're gonna be doing this. Like,
It's not surprising. You can't, all these people go to the park and they're all drinking booze. Like, of course they're gonna go to the bathroom everywhere, like, if they close it down. It was like the same thing when the government shutdown happened and all these national parks and stuff, and then they had to, because there was so much feces also, that they had to it was changing the environment. Yeah.
Hey, Randy.
Hi, Golas.
How are you? So good to see you.
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good.
Your baby looks so healthy.
Thank you. He's so
what
chubby.
is his personality like?
Very independent. I'm like, he's like, I don't need parents, basically.
He learned from Henry.
I know. But he was like trying to hold his head from day one. We were like, be a baby already.
Like, get your hand off my neck.
Yeah, and he's like, it's like everything we do with him, he's kind of like having a fight with it. Like, I'm like breastfeeding and he wants to pull his head back, and I'm like, it's a battle in here. Like, I'm like pushing and he's pulling and he's pushing. But he's like, I think he's like laughing a little bit now. Like, he's actually like establishing a personality now, I think, more and more.
Mm-hmm.
But he's really cute. Yeah,
he is.
Supermodel.
I'm his mother, so I'm like, of course he's cute.
You're doomed.
Carlos, what is your baby like?
If I can have a picture. I mean, I asked out of duty, and time is limited, as you know, Golas.
Yes. Is he sleeping okay, Carlos? Or
yes.
Is it a girl
Yes. Totally. She's...
Okay, cool.
Oh,
cutie.
Oh,
cute.
She's great. I mean, I think she's a good person, which is all you want.
That's pretty cool. Talking.
is that what is he saying?
What is he saying?
He's like, don't talk about me.
Yeah.
Like, I've been saying.
I hear you, lady.
But so this is how a drink after an opening would look like, no?
Yeah. This is
the virtual.
Yep.
I feel like people would.
I don't think they talk about babies.
Maybe. I feel like all of a sudden, a lot of people got pregnant at the same time.
I know.
Like Karen, you're like, oh yeah, me too.
I think it's just our age range.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Flo got a turtle, so.
Yeah, that's my baby. Very spoiled.
Yeah, I'm just gonna be a cat mom for life.
Oh my god.
Candy.
Yeah, not having kids. But good job for you guys.
So should we end for tonight?
Yes, I was gonna say I had like 7:30 duty,
Okay.
but it's really, I mean, I don't know. I met a lot of.
Well, come to the next one, Carlos.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do it
I'm
once
gonna
a
come.
week.
I was in the previous one on
yeah.
on mute because I had to be on duty with the baby.
Baby
But
time.
yeah, next one I hope to be on, and I mean I would like to hear more in physical ways.
We'll have like a when this is over, we'll have like a digital and physical precog mixer or something.
Yeah.
We'll have Zoom for the
Before
people
it hits back in winter.
Yeah, like
Very
in
good.
2022, we'll all meet.
Very good. And we will discover that this one person doesn't have legs and the other one.
All of us will have long hair. Like still, we'll just be like really.
Okay, thanks a lot.
All right, bye.
Big pleasure.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye.